Hello, and welcome to the Cycle Breaker Parents Unite podcast. Today is, well, it's been a long time planning and it finally happened because today we're talking about flow. Today's title is You Deserve to Flow, because this is one of those things about cycle breaking is it's not just about how to get kids to do things and how to get kids not to do things. It's about breaking those broader cycles, and part of that is looking after ourselves and living into our authentic, true expressions of who we are. And a lot of cycle breakers, we've lost that, or it's been trained out of us, or we grew up in survival mode and have to actually do some of the healing and the skills to break our cycles and become the parents we want to be. So, with that in mind, I would like to welcome Laura Hart from Laura Hart Home. Hi, Laura.
Hello.
Oh, it's so
So
great to have
happy
you
to
here.
be here.
And Laura, could you just share with us what you do? Because it's just the most perfect sentence. I love it.
So in a very, yeah, like you said, just in one sentence, I help women to flow. And that might
Love it.
seem really simple, and it is simple.
That thing
Um,
like simple but not always easy, but beautiful.
yeah. And if you I'm quite intuitive, so I get given sort of visuals, and the visual is if you imagine like a body of water, a stream, a fast moving stream, and that's your flow. And then you imagine that we put on the end of it either a gate. It's like some people have a gate, and I like to imagine, those wooden gates with the slats, and then the flow can
Yeah.
go through. So there's a little bit of flow, but it's still butting up a little
Do you
bit,
know
and then you
that's the
get
one where when you said that, that really hit me because I think that that is me.
yeah.
I feel like I've got it a little bit, but you know, when you said it earlier about flow in all areas of your life, I know that I have I feel like maybe I'm not that I know, but I feel like I have flow in certain areas and then others very much the dam is still up.
Yeah, I think yeah, so the dam. So some people have a dam, and if you can imagine that that water's just hitting, that's the hustle energy that a lot of business women have, who have gone from a 9 to 5 mindset and trying to bring that into a business that's quite like all about them, and that's where that energy is going like this. So I do tend to help business women, but also women who are about to go into business, to help them to sort of have a nicer transition where it's not as boom boom. So yeah, and I do that through, I'm trained in something called quantum flow, and quantum flow is all about creating that flow in your body first. So coming back to your natural state. I mean, I'll talk probably a bit more about that in a bit. I'm also an artist, so I help people by painting the possibility through my art, so
That's
showing
how
them
I
the
found you.
energy.
That's how I
Yeah,
found you through art. Just
yeah. And I
amazing
also help,
expressions. I
sorry.
remember you, I think, sorry, there's a half second delay on the recording. Sorry. I remember seeing something that you did which really, really caught my eye. It was a week, I think it was a weekend workshop that you'd done, and in your group you'd shared a Facebook uh on Facebook you'd shared a picture of it, and it was like you'd stood at the easel, on the canvas, and you just sort of, for me it was just, it looked so free because I'm not particularly arty. Like I work with words and I could go into poetry and allegories. I could write for hours. That's my expression. But in terms of the visual art, it was something that you did. Must have been not in a group, but it was something that I'd seen maybe on my timeline. And then I clicked through, and that's where I started following you in your group. It's just incredible expression of it was flow. It was, for people who can't see, people are listening, I'm doing big hand, big hand movements because it was one of those things that made me stop and sit back. And I was like, that's just so joyful and free. And I could see photos of lots and lots of women doing it as well. And I just thought, yeah, that's it. That's what
Yeah, that was a retreat. For me, actually, personally, that was me taking some time for my flow. Yeah, so yeah, between being, so do quantum flow, the healing, I'm a healer, I'm an artist, and I basically bring all those skills together to help women to flow in life, in business. and that flow creates so much more in their life. It just means that, you know, things just synchronize rather than that energy of like, I know not everyone can see me, but I'm like hitting my head against a wall, basically, that
Yeah,
hustle
it's
energy. So yeah.
it's like trying to get a car up a hill, isn't it? And you're like, come on.
Yeah, and
Me
it's
and my
just
old
about
girl.
letting that flow, yeah, the flow come to you. Because when you're doing that hustle energy, you're going after things, you're trying to catch things, you're trying to bring it in. But actually, when you're in the flow, you're sat and it's coming to you because you're just in a good place.
Yeah, and it's interesting because when I speak to, obviously I work with cycle breaker parents, and when I speak with cycle breaker parents, one of the things that they want for their children, and I work with people with children under the age of about 10, you know, there's some leeway there, but mostly under 10, and they will talk about what they want for their children in the future, and they want flow. Even though it might not always be used with that specific word, but they'll say, I don't want them to fight for everything. I don't want everything to feel hard. I don't want them to hustle. I don't want them to find everything tough and feel like everything is a chore.
Mm.
And then when I, you know, and I have that feeling too. I want that for my children. The say the trouble. The thing is that even though we can say that and we can encourage our children, they learn by how we, the parents, live. And if we live in hustle mode, and if we live in fight mode, and if they observe us making choices of, okay, so I have a weekend, I could do something like an artistic retreat, or I could even, might not even be art, it might be I could go to yoga, or I could do this with my friend, or I could get my head down and do something quote sensible, you know, and organize this or clean this or whatever. If we always, of course, sometimes we're going to choose that, aren't we? But if we always choose the, you know, what society deems sensible, they are going to reach a point where they have a choice in their life and they won't prioritize their mental health and their general well-being and their authentic selves. They will do the thing that a lot of cycle breaker parents have told me about, where they say, oh, actually, I went into this course when I was a teenager. You know, I studied this because my mom wanted me to do something sensible. Or my dad said that that was a bit unsafe. And actually, I need the money I needed to get a house and a home and be secure. So I thought I'd do this first, and then I go back to the art later, or I go back to the theatre later. And, you know, and all of a sudden you're 45 and yeah, you have your house and your car, and it's not actually as fulfilling as you think, because it turns out that when we cover our authenticity, I'm doing for people on the podcast, I've got one hand in a fist, and I'm showing like the little layers, you know, when we put all those different layers of society says I need to do this, my mom says I have to do this, my dad says I need to be safe, oh, and then it becomes harder and harder to break out. And so for our children to live that life that we want for them, to break the cycle, we've got to go first. And do you know what's interesting is, Laura, you said something, we were just chatting before we came, I don't know, is it on air? Kind of is, isn't it?
Yeah, I like that.
I like that. Let's imagine it like we're on a radio station. We were just chatting about how it might feel a bit daunting, like, but I have the kids, I have to get them ready for life, and you know, I have to get them ready for school if you go to school, and I have to do this and this, and I have to break this cycle and flow. But actually, like you said, we learn from them. The children are the teachers. You know, can you share a bit about that, please? You know, about play, because you said it so much better, and it's your area of expertise.
Yeah, so I'm actually putting together a workshop series, local actually, but the reason for doing it is because many people say to me that they just want to be in that state of just play. And I noticed with my friends who've got kids, and just the other day we went to a party and they had this bigger slide. It was like this, you know, like proper big slide, big bouncy slide. And the adults needed an excuse to go on the slide through their children. And I was watching this quite interestingly, that none of them went on without their kids. And that's fine, you know, that's great, because kids do bring that out in us. But what if we could play without the kids? You know, what if we could have a life of play where that energy is always at the forefront of our mind? So that's what, when Heart Flow playtime sessions for adults was born, you know,
Oh,
all
I would
about
so be there
play.
if we still live near you. Oh, my mom lives very near to Laura in Loughborough in the UK. My family live in Leicester, and I would be there. absolutely, if I could.
Yeah,
Sounds
and
incredible.
I'd love you to come, because the whole point of the sessions is not about getting somewhere, because we spend our life, like you said, with society, getting the job, getting the qualifications, getting whatever, GCSEs, whatever. And there's nothing wrong with that, by the way. But for women who really want to feel that freedom and that expansion, it's actually, for me, the key is going back. The key for flow is play, exploration, curiosity. And actually, when you're not trying to find anything, that is when the biggest insights come. It's amazing. And
Yeah,
I know
I've
that
done
from my own
exactly the
self.
same thing where, I've been doing like cross stitch or something. I don't normally do that. I've been trying to put my phone down at night. And so one of the things that I listen to an audiobook and I do some cross stitch or some drawing or whatever, just to not have my phone. And it's actually really helped with sleeping, by the way. It's like had a huge impact with the not having a white light. But it's those times, where you're in the bath. I guess he was out like going eureka. It's those times when you're doing something completely different, where all of a sudden everything works, doesn't it? It sort of slots whilst you're not looking at it. And then you have these huge insights. And it's great. It's I mean, I'm gonna turn the camera around. I already did this for Laura, so people listening to the podcast. So we were talking about how children don't say, I'm going to do this play. Oh, Laura, could you explain it? How about how kids just say, I'm going to do that. They don't even explain it. They just do something. They just announce it. So they don't say like, I'm going to play so that when I'm grown up, I have good motor skills.
Yeah, I suppose it's a bit like what we were just saying about not needing an outcome. Children just go, oh, that's interesting. Oh, I'll just go and follow that. Oh, no, I'm bored of that now. Oh, I'm going to go over there. Oh, no, I'm going to go over there. Whereas not all of us, but this is what we tend to do, is we tend to go, right, I'm going to go and do that course so that I can get that degree, so that I can go to that college, so I can go to get that job, then I can get the house, and I can get, and that it goes down this little funnel, whereas kids are like zigzag, like they go, and that energy creates flow, and it also creates bigger opportunities and possibilities.
Yes, that's the thing. It's actually you get more done when you're in that state, and more exciting things. Yeah, and I was just saying that I've observed that even this afternoon with my children. So I have three, they're 6, 4, and 3 years old. And they were just like, Teddy, who's 3, was like, Mummy, I'm a cake. Right? I'm a chocolate cake. Bear's a lemon drizzle cake. We've been cooking this week, and they came and basically they trashed my bedroom. I'm going to turn the camera around, so you'll have to go on YouTube. They turned my bed into a cake. They piled up all the cushions, and they were like, "This is a strawberry, red cushion. This is a flower, a yellow cushion. This is sugar." And they were like, sprinkling bits of fabric on and things. And in the end, I just didn't look. And we'll tidy it later, but they played for an hour, and they didn't say, I am going to do this in order to, even like me with my cross stitch, why do I do it? It's in order to have my phone down so that I can sleep. It's actually quite frustrating. I'm calling myself out on that now.
And we were saying, weren't we, that creativity and play is messy. And I was saying as well that even when I go to art classes, because I take the time to go to classes just to keep, with people, I am messy, I am that one that has like stuff all over the desk. But what I tend to do is, in my head, I'm like, I can hear little voices from society or parents or whatever saying, you're messy, put it away. So then I'm starting to line my pencils up, and I'm like, no, the flow is for me messy. And that's what we were laughing, because you were like saying, yeah, kids don't care if they're messy. That's their creativity. Yeah, it is messy, and it's okay to be messy.
Yeah, and then at the end, I mean, when they come back, part of the reason why I've left it is one, because we had our appointment, but it's mostly because when they come back, we put on the same. So maybe this is I talk about healing plus skills equals the parent you want to be. One of my skills is I have the same tidy up song, which, by the way, is Shake Sonora, from Beetlejuice, and we play it really, really loudly, and then we tidy up the house in the evening. So when they come back up shortly, they will be tidying that up. And I will be helping, because we need to, I need to show them how to do it collaboratively. But actually, mess isn't a thing to be afraid of, and again, I say this as a mum of three, like I have previously felt completely swallowed by mess. So we do what we're comfortable with, don't we? And if you if you're not quite comfortable with your house being completely trash, which I don't think any of us are, but we could do it in increments, can't we? We could say, okay, well, here is a space, or I always used to do painting in the garden when we lived in England. It's much easier. Or I've done, mixed shaving foam with food coloring, and then send them off into the shower, and they'll paint the shower, and then we can wash it off, and it's like, oh. So it doesn't have to be so messy that it's upsetting, and then it's like, oh, it's another thing to do. But no, and mess is good. We can celebrate mess. And I think sometimes as parents, we're thinking about the next thing, aren't we? We're always thinking, okay, what about next time? What about next time? What about later on when I have to clean it up before bed? What about when they need to go to school and in the house is a mess? We're worrying. So maybe, like, you go on your retreats, and I know we're in lockdown, but we're coming out of it. I will start going to places and meeting real people and doing pottery. And in that time, in that space, embrace the mess and embrace the cleanup. And actually, they are learning from making mess, and they are learning from cleaning up. Mm-hmm. And more importantly, they're learning to express themselves without constraints.
Yeah. Definitely.
And that's
yeah.
Do you have any advice, Laura, for this is a big one, for cycle breaker parents listening to this? Because with this podcast, we have so many different areas, so many different things. Sometimes it's a particular skill. Like last week was all about EFT tapping and exactly how that mechanism works. And we're going to have an acupuncturist on at a different point. And then with this session, we're thinking about flow, and we're thinking about how we can support our children to achieve that and embody that in ourselves. So do you have any advice for somebody who is a cycle breaker parent? And cycles aren't necessarily, from childhood. It doesn't necessarily mean that you have to have had a really, really tough childhood. It could be that you just weren't allowed, could be that you weren't allowed to be the real you. Could be that you weren't allowed to be messy. Could be that you were kind of artistically inclined, and that got clipped as you got progressively older. And then these people have children, and then they want their children to be artistic, and it kind of is a bit triggering, seeing our children be very, very artistic, and just thinking, I want that. Do you have any advice for the parent who is trying to bring it out of their children, but also noting that when their children are very creative, there's that contraction, that contraction around your heart of, oh, this is tricky. What can we do when we're in that position?
Yeah, I feel like the answer to that, or, part of it is, what is my flow? Yeah. Because a lot of the time, like you say, when you watch your child get all creative, and then you're thinking to yourself, when was the last time I was creative? And creativity doesn't have to be go off and draw a picture. It could be as simple as putting on a really high vibe song, getting in the flow, and I find that when I'm in that sort of playful dancing with the kids or whatever, on your own, I hope you can hear me because it's saying unstable.
I can hear.
Is when everything just sort of starts to flow and that ideas come, and also ask, what would create flow for me today? What would create
That's a great question, like a journaling question.
With me
what would
and the kids, People, it is. And you don't have to be an artist. The first thing that someone says to me is, I'm not creative and I can't draw. And I can tell you right now, you are creative. If you can pick up a pen and do a scribble, you're creative. It's not about the outcome. Again, we're going back to the outcome. It's not about Picasso. You're not Picasso. Well, you might be. Who knows? But if you don't explore, you'll never know if you're Picasso, or if you're a dancer, if you're a singer, if you're a writer. And that's what sometimes our creativity is stunted before it's even, like, you're almost like, I've been told I'm not very good sometimes by a teacher who you respect, and it's just about throwing all that away, almost throwing it up in the air, and when it comes back down, going, do you know what is the next best thing for me to do right now to bring me into flow? And if it's even if you have to use your kids to like get the crayons out, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, no, I
Doesn't matter.
sometimes do that. Like I sit with the kids, and because we home educate, it's that is in its own way a massive learning curve. And I've noticed that so I have like we have 3 little tables, just dotted around the place. And I tend to set, I don't do it every day. I'm laughing because in my dreams, I set them up every day. I absolutely don't. Sometimes I set them up, and one of them I'm trying to set up as a writing table. And you can tell by my smile that it has not worked. And then I realized, why is it not working? And actually they brought we have doodling books and colors and stuff, and they brought all of that stuff over, and they just sat and they were doodling, and I was sitting there thinking, oh, you're not right. And I had to just let it go, just let go of the outcome, because what they are doing is they're practicing their motor skills. With the educator head on, they are actually like pre-writing, especially the younger two who shouldn't be writing, don't need to be. There's no expectations for a 3-year-old, is there? And off they go, they're scribbling along. And then I realized, how about I sit with them? And when I sat with them and I started doodling more fine, intricate things, I was doodling a maze of pipes. My kids started doing that. And then when I sat down there and I started writing, I do journaling every day. And I sat and I did my journaling, and I looked over, and my 4-year-old had written the word on a piece of paper. He'd written big feelings. I was like, oh my goodness. So they really do learn from us by how we do things, not by what we say. That's the big example, isn't it? Like, it's not really what we say, because if we say, live into your creative self, be free, and then don't live with any creativity in our lives, they're probably not going to follow any form. And I'm not saying we want our children to be an artist necessarily, but it's just about, like you said, building in flow and creativity. And that could be like a physical, I do quantum flow, or have done quantum flow as well. And that's not about drawing, it's not about art, it's just about feeling I'm doing it, it's about feeling your body and taking up space. And that's a big thing, especially for women, isn't it? The taking up space. And for the cycle breaker parent who grew up in a place where to live into their creative selves wasn't that safe. If you have an unreliable parent or a parent with addiction issues, being free and creative and ballet dancing in your living room probably isn't that safe. Or, being loud and getting the pots and pans isn't safe. So we've learned that way to stymie, is that a word? To stymie, to stifle. And we've built our own dams. Each one of those bits of wood, I'm using your example, each one of those bits of wood is something that somebody else has put on top of us, isn't it? So yeah, I think we take them down bit by bit, I guess, by living it.
Yeah, and art is, any type of creativity is the energy of free thinking at the end of the day.
Oh wow.
That's why it's so important. You know how sometimes at schools, and I'm not saying all schools, but in mainstream, art is the first thing to go, or the dance.
I was a year 5 teacher. And we lost art.
Yeah, it's where they free think. Because my son had a period of not doing much art, and I gave him a canvas, I gave him all the paints, and I said, just start. And he just looked at me and he was like, I can do anything. And my heart kind of went, ooh, as an artist as well, because I was kind of going for a bit of a challenge myself. And I was like, you can do whatever you want. There's not one single rule here, not one.
Oh.
Yeah. And just like, I really connect with that.
You just saying that.
Yeah. Both for the child and for the adult as well. When you have a piece of paper in front of you that's blank, it can be quite daunting for you. So it's a bit like what you're saying. If you can live the life that you would like for your children, or to be that example, then you will create that flow through to your child as well. It's not just a flow to you, it flows out to your family, to your next, your mum, dad, your own mum and dad, everyone. So I've seen that myself with my own dad, who is also an artist. So yeah.
Oh wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Family of artists. It's you just made me think of something there. So when I was a year 5, I taught in Key Stage 2, which is year 3, 4, 5, 6. So anybody not from the UK, that's ages 7 to 11 was my area. And whenever we did art, what, and maybe it's changed. I've been out of the job for what, 5 years now, 6 now, because my eldest is 6. But it was always like, here's the lesson that really sticks in my mind is that we had Starry Night, and we had that up on the board, and we talked about it, we listened to some music about it, we listened to Starry Night, and then we cut it in half. It was all prepared, so the kids got half of Starry Night, and then they got to finish off the rest whilst the original was on the board. And even at the time, I was like, I mean, I know that is an element of art history. It's not art. I mean, it is art. It is a form of art, but it wasn't like, here's all the stuff, off you go. And my children actually go to an art specialist when we're not in lockdown, and she has this incredible studio, and the kids love it because she just goes in, and she does have something in a corner. She has a stimulus each week, and it might be a book or something, and then she just says, okay, children, you have 1 hour and 40 minutes, go. And they all make something different, and she has the skills and the expertise to walk around and lead them on without leading them, to help them make their own decisions about their piece. I don't even know what to call it, whether it's a work of art or their piece, but it's quite powerful to watch, and it's not how I've seen it taught. And the trouble is that many of us who have the standard education have gone through, and that's what we think of as art, and that's probably why we think that we're unqualified to do artistic things in our adulthood, isn't it? It's in itself a cycle. So yeah, get yourself to a class, do something just for you, with no outcome. I think that's the key thing that you said, Laura. You said it a few times, no outcome. And I'm going to start catching myself, because I often have to justify myself like a parent going on the slide. This is so that I can sleep better. This is so that I can unwind. I'm doing this colouring book so that I can be calm. And actually, how about I'm just doing this colouring book because I want to. 36,
joy
I
of
want to
it.
colour in. Yeah. Why not? So Laura, we just talked about classes, about parents investing in ourselves. Essentially, that's what it is. Like, I was going to say need to. I'm going to correct that. We get to do things. We get to sit and doodle. Maybe that's sitting with the kids if we're not quite ready. And I think that's probably where I am quite right now, where I can sit with the kids, and that can lead me in, and I do my stuff and they do their stuff. Other people are going to be able to just do it themselves, and that's awesome. So if somebody wants to work with you, what do they do? Oh, I wish I lived near you.
So yeah, there's a few things coming up now. This one is more for local people to Loughborough, so I know you're not all local to that area. I am actually holding in person because I felt there was a bit of a demand for these play sessions, in starting the 10th of November for 5 weeks in a local village hall actually. So I will put a link for those who are local, and I am also thinking of doing something online. I haven't got to a point where I've got dates or anything, but I've got 2 things. So one thing would be doing a quantum flow class, just because the first part of this, even putting pen to paper is just releasing. And I also offer one-to-one sessions that are completely tailored to whatever you need help with around this subject of flow, of feeling freedom, being able to be you. And actually, it's a lot of the time it's a delayering process.
Yes.
It's there. It's already there inside you. And I know you've probably heard this before, but it literally is just taking all the stuff off to get to the core of it, the heart of what it is.
Like you said, everybody has different layers. Everybody, that's why it works so well, isn't it? Individual.
Yeah. So yeah, there's a few ways, and I also create my own art. So I've got prints that you can buy on the website that help people to see the possibility. I tend to paint the energy of something, so like the energy of flow, the energy of freedom, and so that when people look at it, I hope anyway, that they get a spark of inspiration to know that they can also have that feeling in them. So it usually sparks something.
Oh wow. So in the show notes, I'll put your website, which I'm going to go and have a look at myself, because I've made a commitment this year for Christmas. I know it's only well, I say it's only October. It's basically nearly Christmas. and I've made a commitment to support local people and artists, and I do that every year, but it's just, we're moving away from the time when everyone just presses buy now on Amazon. I feel like there's a movement towards supporting people. So yes, Please, the website, and also you have a Facebook group, don't you?
Yes, it's called, I'll just remind myself, Heart Flow Community. I can also give you the link to that.
Yes, we'll put everything in the show notes, because I know when I'm listening to, I tend to listen to podcasts on the go, and I'm like, oh, I'm never going to remember that. So it will all be in the show notes, so you can follow Laura. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing your wisdom and your flow. And I just can't wait to go and look at, I'm going to go and look at your painting straight away before the kids come back up, and then we start attacking that pile of mess over there. Thank you so much for your time. And yeah, if anybody wants to get in touch, just click through the show notes, and then you can go and visit Laura that way. Thanks, Laura.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.